Hello everyone and welcome back to Deresley. It's been a while since I've done a railway video, I know. It's a combination really of being busy with some work commitments and finding the time to link together enough material to make a video. As you know, I've been working on dinky toy videos as well, and I do enjoy them because they're sort of compact little projects that have a beginning, a middle and an end, and they're easier to edit and they're quicker to do because each one stands alone, unlike the railway of course, which is seemingly never ending. But I have started some projects, as you know, particularly the scenic, in the area of the scenics. My sort of town centre diorama that's to fit over the control panel, for instance. So now we have this enforced lockdown thanks to the coronavirus. One of the things I can do in the weeks ahead is to concentrate on my railway alongside my interest in dinky toys. So I'm going to pick up on this video from where I left off talking about the scenics and scratch building. I did put together some footage which I shall show you shortly, and I have made buildings from scratch. This is the little barn or tractor shed that I made. It's just an invented design actually, just to make a little building. It hides a point motor. But I think you can see how poorly this is weathered in the daylight. This is supposed to be weathered timber, and it's gone very red. That seems to be the problem with a lot of my buildings where I've printed the sheets myself on my printer, and although I have put sprayed on varnish and matte varnish in some instances, it still fades to this red colour. And what I've decided to use on this to get over the fading and the colour shift is to buy some pre-printed paper rather than printed it myself. What I've done is use this to produce a simple structure at the moment. It's a bit flimsy, but I've used pre-printed papers of this weathered planking. Anyway, I'm hoping I'm not going to have any problems with the fading due to the effects of ultraviolet, I guess. I have produced this lovely little building for Deresley, and I produced it from the photographs I took a year or so, or possibly more, a couple of winters back. This was an estate agent's, but it is now Liz's Tea and Cakes. Now the main area I've worked on is the placement of the buildings, and I have started to work on the park area and the war memorial, and I bought a Dapol war memorial as a base for this. Okay, it's the most basic of kits. It consisted of a little plinth in plastic, a little base unit that presumably has all the names of the fallen on the plaques on either side, and then this was just a simple obelisk. So those three parts made up the kit, and the obelisk itself is to be replaced with a World War I soldier figure. And after a fair amount of time searching, I came across this dinky toy soldier figure that was a spare or a reproduction part for one of the military sets in the dinky toy range. Anyway, before I go into too much detail, let's go over and have a look at the scratch building parts to some of the buildings in the centre of Deresley I've done that I haven't shown you. As a reminder, these are the row of shops in Southwold that I based my diorama around. So this is part of the ongoing project. I've got to this stage with the build. As you can see from the photograph of the original, this shop is a rather nice sort of traditional heritage blue-grey colour, but from the pictures I've got from the internet taken in the 1960s, it was white, or at least it looked white in the black and white photographs. So that's what I'm going to do it. I'm going to paint it white. I've made this building so far from just one sheet of A4 2mm grey board. Most of this is that, in fact, but I've put a couple of bracing bits for this roof from 1mm grey card. But an A4 sheet of each, 2mm and 1mm, is all you're going to need if you want to make a shop this big. It's really economical on materials. I've cut some other bits from 1mm grey card. This is the roof for the bit of the building that goes back here, and that's relatively straightforward. The thing that's most awkward on this is the shape of this roof. It sort of kicks out at the bottom here, and I was originally just going to make it as a normal roof, but I thought perhaps with a little effort I could work out how to do this little sort of shaped bit. It comes down here and then kicks out at the bottom end of the roof. This is the profile of the roof. I've cut some formers or pieces in here that are going to hold the roof shape up, and this is just another one of these. These are in 1mm grey card, and I've glued some in place, a couple in place, and the way I'm going to do it is to glue that little slope down there. I haven't cut it fully to shape, but I'm going to glue that first on there, and then with the roof I'm going to glue that on top of there so it comes down and kicks out. Problem with this, it's not a square roof that ends there. It actually is going to slope back like that, and the bottom is going to kick out as well. To be absolutely honest, I've never scratch built anything like this shape before, so I've worked with a little trial and error to cut the various pieces to make this roof, with no real measurements actually, just eyeballing it for the angles, and then, as I mentioned, putting on these flat pieces here. These are both glued on, and then with that shape I was able to offer up a piece of card, just mark it off and cut it to fit like that. It needs cementing in position obviously, but the join will be covered with the capping tiles, and then I've offered up and marked and cut the roof panels in exactly the same way, and that one goes on there. Which all that leaves me to do then is to make a piece that fits in there and fills in all the gaps, or at least most of them. Anyway, before I go too much further, I've marked a couple of places in the roof here where I'm going to drop some LEDs for the lighting, so I will get that wired in before I add the roofing pieces. I've fitted two LEDs, 3mm warm white LEDs they are, one in each side of this roof part here, so that's ready to light up the interior of the shop this end. And now I've got this little skirt, the little bit flare out bit around here is fixed in, so the next thing I can do now is to glue the main roof part's in position, and then I can finally cut this last bit to fit here to make everything flush. When I cut this bit, there's a dormer window goes in here, so I'll cut the aperture for the dormer window. So now I've finished both roofs. This one was well worth the effort, I think, because this shape gives the building a lot of the character of the original. There's some tidying up still to be done. I need to put some plaster filler, some polyfiller in around here just to seal some of the edges, and of course I need to apply some tile papers which I've downloaded from Scale Scenes. This is just simply red tile. Well, as you can see, the exteriors of the scratch built buildings are almost finished. I've got the shop front to do on one, but I've got the buildings placed here at the moment. At this moment I haven't actually got any of the buildings glued down, but first I need to make sure that they've all got lights and then drill holes through the baseboard. But by the time I speak with you again on this, the buildings will be in the position. Because this is going to be a movable piece, it's a cover that's going to have quite a lot of photographic opportunity, I think, stills and video. But it is essentially a cover for the control panel, and when I need to control a railway and run the railway, then this will need to come off. So I can't have too many bits and pieces that are loose on it that are just going to fall off. Like, for instance, the cars. You know, if it gets on an angle and they all roll off, that would be a little silly. And the people as well, and various other things that normally you would probably leave loose and just place them. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have to fix everything to the surface of the board, so that it can be easily moved and shifted across onto this surface when I operate the railway, and then I'll move it back onto the railway after I've finished. So that's the plan. I can't see why it shouldn't work. So here goes. So let's now take a closer look at my diorama. I'll start this end with the park. You can see clearly now that I've got the park thought out and laid out. The brown areas will be grass and flower beds, and the sort of beige areas are going to be walkways, paths, and the area there that's going to house the war memorial. I've started to put the park fencing around the perimeter of this, but it is involved sort of stepping it up the slope as the road rises towards the shops at the top. I've also painted the gates, the park gates. I bought these some while ago at a model railway exhibition. They're a resin casting, and I've painted them with a gloss black, and then I've brush painted some Vallejo bronze paint on to decorate them up. Which brings us to the top and the main shops. And finally, this is where the garage is. There's a little area for car sales, etc. But basically it's laid out, not fixed down, but laid out. Anyway, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this update, and you can see roughly where I intend to go over the next few weeks. It would be a real buzz for me to get this finished. Thankfully I can still order things online. 90% of all my scenics I'm hoping will get done during this health crisis that we're all having to find things to occupy our times with. Anyway, I wish you all good health, and I hope you all stay safe, and thanks for watching my video. Next week I'll be turning my attention back to Dinkies, and then the week after I'm going back to the railway. So I'm going to try and balance this a lot more now I've sorted my time out, as it were, for the weeks ahead. So if you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe in the normal way. Thank you very much for watching.